Imagine this. A young girl, just 14 years old, is led to the edge of a cliff, her hands bound, her eyes wide with terror. She's not just any girl. She's the daughter of a nobleman, chosen by the gods, they say. The priest raises a knife to the heavens, muttering prayers. The wind howls. The crowd below holds its breath. And then silence. Is this the Greece you imagined? The land of philosophers, poets, and democracy? What if I told you that beneath the marble temples and the grandiose myths, there lies a history that's far darker, more complex, and deeply tied to the women of ancient Greece? In most people's minds, ancient Greece is synonymous with male dominance. Socrates debating in the agora, warriors defending city-states, and the gods, always male, wielding their power. But behind the scenes, woven into the very fabric of Greek society, were women. And not just in the roles you might expect: mother, wife, daughter. These women shaped religion, ritual, and society in ways we're still uncovering. Let's talk about human sacrifice, a practice that is often brushed aside when discussing ancient Greece. We think of it as barbaric, something from the distant past of more primitive civilizations. But what if I told you that in certain places and times, sacrifices weren't just accepted, they were demanded by the gods? Take Brauron, a site dedicated to the goddess Artemis. Here, young girls, barely more than children, served as bears in a ritual to honor the goddess of the hunt. They were separated from their families for years, trained, and some scholars even suggest they may have been involved in ritualistic sacrifices. But was it always literal sacrifice? Not quite. These young girls often represented purity, devotion, and a form of societal sacrifice. Their time and identity were offered up to the gods, marking a key passage from childhood to womanhood, forever tying them to the divine. But in the shadow of this sacred tradition lies a deeper, darker truth, one that many historians prefer to forget. Women in ancient Greece were also the primary participants in religious festivals like the Thesmophoria, a fertility ritual dedicated to Demeter and Persephone. It was a female-only festival, shrouded in mystery, full of rites that are still not entirely understood today. Some sources suggest the rituals involved fasting, purification, and possibly even the symbolic death and rebirth of women to ensure a bountiful harvest. But what's even more shocking, during moments of crisis, drought, famine, war, there are whispered tales that some of these rituals may have escalated. The city of Athens, desperate and out of options, might have turned to the ultimate offering: human life. It's easy to forget that behind these grand narratives of gods and heroes were real people, especially women, who lived their entire lives in the shadows of these myths. Some were priestesses, others were queens, and many more were everyday women who experienced the world differently from the men whose names we all know today. Women in ancient Greece weren't always victims of circumstance. They wielded real influence, often in religious and ritualistic settings. Priestesses, for instance, held a kind of power that transcended the political sphere. Take the Oracle of Delphi, the Pythia. Her words could change the course of empires. But here's the question no one likes to ask. How much of that power came from the gods, and how much came from the calculated influence of women working within the limits of their roles? So the next time you think of ancient Greece, remember the women. They weren't just background figures in a male-dominated world. They were the lifeblood of rituals, the keepers of secrets, and in many ways, they were the ones who shaped the very soul of their society. And sometimes, a history hidden in blood.